Welcome back to the deep dive. It is Saturday, January 24th, 2026. We have a really fascinating stack of notes to get through today. Usually we're looking at something singular, a new piece of tech, a historical event. But today we are looking at a collision. We have a piece of cosmic analysis about a planetary shift happening right now, and we have a piece of narrative fiction about a starship on the edge of a collapsing galaxy.
It does sound like a bit of a strange mix when you say it like that. But these two sources, both from Tarot by High C, are actually trying to answer the exact same question. And honestly, it is a heavy one.
It is. The question basically boils down to this. What do you do when the hero approach stops working? We're so culturally wired to believe that if something is broken, the right thing to do is, run in, break down the door, and fix it with your bare hands. But the materials today are suggesting that right now, specifically for the next 6 weeks, that is the absolute wrong move.
Right. We're exploring the concept of strategic action.
Mm.
And more specifically, the art of the refusal.
Mm.
It's about understanding that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stand still and hold up a mirror.
Which is incredibly frustrating to hear. I think most of us, myself included, are wired to do things. Inaction feels like failure. But before we get to the spaceship and this concept of the refusal, we have to set the stage with the actual energy of the day. The source material highlights a major astrological shift. Mars entered Aquarius yesterday, January 23rd, and it's going to be parked there until March 2nd.
And this is a significant shift. To understand why this matters, you have to look at the physics of it, so to speak. You have to understand the players. Mars is the planet of drive. It's aggression, war, the ego, the impulse to conquer. It's fire. It's I want this, and I am going to get it right now.
Okay, so that's the engine.
Exactly. But then you have Aquarius. Aquarius is an air sign. He is the water bearer, yes. But elementally, it's air. It represents the intellect, the collective, the system, the future. It's cool, detached, and innovative.
So metaphorically, you're taking the god of war and locking him inside a think tank.
That is a perfect way to describe it. And the friction, or the alchemy between those two energies, is what defines this transit. When you put that hot, driving Mars energy into the cool structural container of Aquarius, the output changes. The source says that motivation shifts from emotional reactions to actions based on principles. That's the key distinction.
Can we ground that a little bit? Because actions based on principles sounds a bit like a corporate poster on a break room wall. What does that actually look like?
Think about a road rage incident. That's typical Mars energy. Someone cuts you off, your ego flares up, and you react. You want to win that moment. You want to punish them, honk at them, speed past them. It's immediate and it's personal.
Right. Classic fight or flight. You want to dominate the other driver.
Mars in Aquarius suppresses that ego reaction. Instead of getting mad at the driver, you might suddenly become obsessed with traffic engineering. You stop caring about the specific person who cut you off, and you start caring about the system that allows bad driving to happen. You want to fix the grid. You want to redesign the intersection.
So it's a shift from me versus you to
us versus the problem. Precisely. The energy's still there. Mars ensures you still have the drive to do something, but the target changes. You aren't trying to beat a person, you're trying to hack the system.
The source also mentions this vibe can feel rebellious, which makes sense if you're looking at systems, but usually when I hear rebellion, I think of chaos.
The source actually warns us about that. It says actions become more strategic, collective, and future-oriented, but it also warns that people may be more rebellious and behaviors could be unexpected. But we have to ask, rebellious against what? Often, yes. But more specifically, rebellion against inefficiency or, old structures that don't work anymore. The source notes that people care less about proving themselves and more about changing the system. If you're in a meeting and you realize the meeting itself is a waste of time, Mars in Aquarius doesn't just sit there and daydream. It stands up and says, this structure is broken. We aren't doing this anymore.
That is terrifying for a manager. It sounds like mutiny.
It can feel like mutiny. The text mentions a sudden urge to step back from drama, and that stepping back can feel like a rejection to the people around you. If you usually engage in a screaming match with your partner every time the dishes aren't done, and suddenly you just stop and look at the pattern instead of the fight, that is incredibly destabilizing for the other person.
Because you aren't playing your part in the script anymore. You've gone off book.
Precisely. You have moved from actor to director. You're looking at the stage, not the other actor. And that requires a level of detachment that can feel cold. But the source argues it's actually the highest form of care. You're trying to solve the root cause rather than just treating the symptom.
So that's the energy we're swimming in for the next 6 weeks. We have this drive to fix systems, but to do it, we have to stop trying to be the hero of the immediate moment. We have to cool down.
And that brings us to the StoryScope.
Yes, and I want to really take our time with this because the narrative today is titled The Long Horizon Directive. It takes this abstract astrological concept, this war god in a think tank, and puts it into a very high-stakes sci-fi setting.
It serves as a narrative mirror. It helps us see what this energy actually looks like in practice when the stakes are life and death.
So let's build this world. We aren't on Earth. We're on a starship called the Aurora Vector.
Right. The source describes it beautifully. It's drifting at the edge of the Helios expanse. The text says the ship was catching starlight like a held breath.
Like a held breath. That really sets a specific tone. It's not aggressive.
It tells us immediately that this ship isn't hunting. It's waiting. The Aurora Vector isn't a battleship. It's a diplomatic and scientific vessel. The crew are described as scientists, engineers, diplomats, and explorers who had grown tired of reacting to emergencies instead of preventing them.
So they are the Mars and Aquarius archetype. They are the system fixers.
They are, but they are facing a classic, brutal problem. The Helios worlds, the civilization down on the planet below, are collapsing. The source says their technologies had outpaced their ethics.
Which is a very relatable problem for 2026, honestly. But what does that look like on the ground?
Total systemic failure. The civil systems on the planet are crumbling. The ruling councils are fracturing into little fiefdoms. There's rioting in the streets. Food distribution networks are failing. It's chaos. And the Aurora Vector is sitting in orbit receiving distress calls.
Now, this is where the conflict starts. Because if I'm on a starship with advanced technology and I look down and see people suffering, my instinct is to go down and help, drop food, stop the riots, stun the bad guys. That's what heroes do.
And that is exactly what Lieutenant Saren wants to do. Saren is the tactical officer. He represents the old Mars. He represents the hero archetype.
He's looking at the data and he's saying, we can fix this in 24 hours.
Right. He argues for a decisive show of force. He wants to go down, secure the capital, and force everyone to play nice. And logically, he isn't wrong. They have the firepower. They could stop the violence by sunset.
So why don't they? This is the part that I struggle with, and I think a lot of listeners might struggle with too. If you have the power to stop suffering, don't you have a moral obligation to use it? Isn't standing by just negligence?
That is the central question of this deep dive. Commander Irina Vale, the captain, says no. Her response to Saren is the anchor of this whole story. She says, and within a generation, they would mistake obedience for peace. That is not why we came.
Mistake obedience for peace. That is a haunting line.
It hits hard. If you force them to stop fighting because you have a bigger gun, have they actually learned how to resolve the conflict? Or have they just learned to be quiet while you're watching?
They've just learned to be afraid of you.
Exactly. And the moment you leave, the fighting starts again. Probably worse than before because now there's a power vacuum. Vale understands that the mission isn't to save the Helios worlds. The source says explicitly, the Aurora Vector had been dispatched not as a solution, but as a mirror.
Okay, but how does a spaceship act as a mirror? That sounds poetic, but what does it mean practically? You can't eat a mirror. You can't build a government out of a mirror.
You can, actually. It means they provided tools, not answers. The crew didn't go down and write the laws. They didn't install a governor. Instead, they broadcast frameworks.
Frameworks like software.
Like social software. The source lists them. Transparent governance models, shared decision systems, open source technologies designed to evolve with community input. They basically beamed down the blueprints for a better, more transparent society and said, here are the tools, you build it.
And they removed the fail-safes.
That is the crucial part.
Yeah.
There were no back doors, no Federation override switch. They gave the technology to the people fully and without restriction.
I imagine the people on the planet were confused.
They were furious. The source notes, change always feels like rebellion to those invested in the old shape of things. The existing leaders on the planet accused the ship of destabilizing tradition. They wanted the Federation to come down and validate their authority. Instead, the Federation gave power to the collective.
It sounds messy.
It's incredibly messy. And this is where the tension peaks on the ship. There is this moment where Ensign Malik asks, what if this fails? What if they tear it apart the moment we leave? And Vale's answer is chilling. She says, then they will be choosing their own failure. And that is still a form of freedom.
That is a hard pill to swallow. The idea that you have to let people fail.
That's the hardest part of leadership. It's the hardest part of parenting. But if you protect someone from every consequence, you are robbing them of their agency. You're making them dependent on you.
So the situation on the planet gets worse before it gets better. And then we hit the climax, the outcast.
The refusal.
Set this up for us, because this is where the hero instinct really gets tested.
So a group called the Helios Industrial Consortium, basically the corporate oligarchs of the planet, decides to game the system. They try to bypass these new open-source frameworks to hoard energy and influence. It's a classic power grab. They're acting like the bad guys in every movie.
And the Aurora Vector sees this happening. They have the sensors. They know exactly who's doing it.
They see it all. They could have stopped it in a second. Saren is on the bridge, probably vibrating with frustration. He knows they could expose the consortium publicly, shut down their servers, end the threat. It would be easy. It would be righteous. It would be a win.
And they don't do it.
They do nothing. This is the outcast. Commander Vale orders the crew to stand down. They let the corruption happen.
But hold on. By doing nothing, aren't they complicit? If you see a crime and you don't stop it, aren't you part of the problem?
That's exactly what Saren thinks. He thinks they are abandoning their duty. But look at the mechanism of what happens next. Because the Federation didn't swoop in to be the police, the people on the planet couldn't look up at the sky for a savior. They had to look at the system.
They had to deal with it themselves.
The source says. The wider population saw the imbalance immediately. The system revealed its own flaw. Because the frameworks were transparent, everyone could see the consortium was cheating. And because there was no mom and dad in the spaceship coming to fix it, the community realized, oh, we have to stop this.
And they did.
They did. Collective pressure mounted. Workers walked out. The data was shared. The consortium folded within days. Not because of a laser blast from orbit, but because they were rendered obsolete by the community.
That is the collective power of Mars and Aquarius.
It is. If the Aurora Vector had intervened, the people would have stayed spectators.
Right.
They would have said, oh, the aliens fixed it. But because of the refusal, the people became participants. They became the immune system for their own society.
That's a massive shift. It's moving from I will save you to I trust you to save yourself.
And that trust is transformational. The aftermath described in the story isn't a fairy tale.
Yeah.
It isn't a utopia. The planet didn't turn into a garden overnight. The source describes the new rhythm as messy, imperfect, alive.
I got stuck on that triad too. Messy, imperfect, alive.
It's such a rejection of the authoritarian piece, isn't it?
Yeah.
A dictatorship is clean, it is perfect, it's quiet, but it's dead. A democracy, a true collective system, is loud, it has friction, it breaks, but it's alive.
But Altit Saren, he's still not happy, is he? Even at the end, looking at the data, seeing that the consortium fell?
No. He looks at the result and says, we didn't save them.
Hmm.
He feels like he failed his duty as a soldier because he didn't fire a shot.
And Vale corrects him.
She says, no, we trusted them. And that is the lesson. Saving someone satisfies your ego. It makes you the protagonist. Trusting someone satisfies their potential. It makes them the protagonist.
That lands hard. It makes me think about so many things in my own life, micromanaging at work, or even how we handle disagreements with friends. How often do we save situations just to make ourselves feel competent when we should be letting the system find its own balance?
That is the shadow of the hero. We want the credit. We want to be the one holding the fire hose. But the Mars and Aquarius energy asks us to build a building that doesn't catch fire and then walk away before anyone can thank us.
Which brings us to the final log entry from the story. The ship is leaving, no parade, no statues, and Commander Vale writes this: the future is not built by heroes, it is built by people willing to change the system rather than conquer it, and to remember why they started when recognition stops mattering.
When recognition stops mattering, that is the hardest hurdle. Can you do the right thing if no one ever knows it was you? Can you fix the system if you don't get your name on the plaque?
That connects right back to the astrology report we started with. The shift from proving oneself to ambitions that benefit others.
Exactly. It's about the long horizon.
So let's bring this down from the stars to the sidewalk. Most of us aren't commanding starships. We are navigating office politics or family dynamics or community boards. But this Mars and Aquarius transit is happening to us right now, today.
It is. For the next 6 weeks, we all have access to this energy. And the challenge for you, for the listener, is to identify where you're acting like Lieutenant Saren.
Where are we trying to force a win?
Exactly. Where are you pushing for a decisive show of force? Maybe it's an argument you keep having where you're just trying to prove you're right and the other person is wrong. Maybe it's a workflow at the office where you keep swooping in to fix everyone else's mistakes because it's faster than teaching them.
The hero trap. It feels good to be the one who fixes it.
It feels efficient in the short term, but it is disastrous in the long term. Because just like the Helios worlds, the people around you will mistake obedience for peace or reliance for competence. If you're always the one doing the dishes because you do them better, your partner never learns the system.
So what's the homework? What is the Aurora Vector move for a normal person living in 2026?
Try the refusal.
That sounds dangerous.
It is risky.
All right.
It feels wrong. But if you see a broken dynamic, stop playing your part. Introduce a framework. Maybe that is a new boundary. Maybe that's a new transparent process at work. And then step back.
And let it get messy.
Let it get messy. If the laundry doesn't get done, don't do it in a rage. Let the system fail so the other people in the house have to see the imbalance. If the project is going off the rails because of a flaw in the plan, don't stay up all night fixing it secretly. Let the flaw reveal itself so the team has to fix the process.
You have to trust the collective.
You have to trust that if people are given the truth and the tools, they will eventually fix it. It might take longer than if you did it yourself. It will definitely be more annoying, but the result will be something alive.
It's a shift from control to influence.
Better yet, it's a shift from control to alignment. The Aurora Vector didn't control the planet. It aligned with the planet's potential. That's the Mars and Aquarius assignment.
I think that's a fantastic place to leave it. We are officially on a 6-week mission to stop being heroes and start being architects.
No capes, just blueprints.
No capes, just blueprints.
No.
I like that. We'll leave you with that thought from Commander Vale to chew on. The future is built by people willing to change the system rather than conquer it. Go out there, check your systems, and maybe, just maybe, do nothing for a change. Thanks for diving in with us.
Until next time.
See you in the deep end.